these aren't the only 5 by any means, right? Happy 5 Fact Friday. 5 Fact Friday. I'm Charlie Lambden, and it is 5 Fact. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to a special Friday evening edition. I have a glass of Guinness here to slurp, and I also have a sticky on the line. You there, Alex?
Evening, Charlie.
Evening. And the more astute of you may notice that the very handsome man with a full head of hair in the top right-hand corner is housing Stig 20 years ago?
No, you've got to be kidding me. 35 years ago.
Isn't he handsome? Look at him. Handsome, blonde, freckly, and wouldn't say boo to a goose. Butter wouldn't melt in his mouth. He wasn't an evil, sadistic bastard at all back then.
Hang on a second. This is when I just come back from interrailing, having been kicked out of my 3rd private school.
Right, guys. Now, first of all, a family warning. There's likely to be some bad language on this show, and there's likely to be some inappropriate discussion. Also, if you're someone who is, Alex and I enjoy gallows humor.
Yeah.
We love to laugh in the face of ruin and adversity. And there's probably going to be some of that because of the stock market crash that's going on. Just because, why not? You know, what else are you going to do? Get miserable about it? So if you're likely to get upset about that sort of thing, you probably shouldn't watch. But I wanted to just kick off before we get into the 5 facts, and I do have my 5 facts for the week, with this really interesting thing that what's happened in the last 2 days has basically solved Gary Stevenson's issues, because all the billionaires have just lost, was it $4 trillion? I think it says there. It's a lot of money they're losing.
2 trillion, surely.
$500 billion in 2 days between them. That's $500 billion in 2 days.
Yeah, but hang on. How much did they make in the last year, given that markets went through the roof?
I know, but the point is, this is what Gary wanted. He wanted the assets to devalue so that the poor of us could go out and buy them. So now we can get right because they're coming down, right? But not only are stocks cheaper, so assets, right? Assets are coming down in price a lot. I've had some friends calling me up and they're quite cross about how much their assets have come down, substantially down. And hang on a second, let's just do this to get the right way around. There we are. And hide the captions just for now. But also it's not just that, it's gilt yields have come down, which means that swap rates might come down.
And for all those people, and I know there are many in your following who are gold bugs and silver hoarders, also they have come down massively. I mean, it's a big percentage drop in gold and silver, and they're going, but it doesn't make any sense. How, when the stock market is crashing, why is gold and silver falling? Oh, yeah. Well, you got margin calls.
Let me get through the 5 facts if I can quickly. But for those of you who are salivating to see billionaires losing money, enjoy this moment. The world's 500 richest people are seeing the biggest 2-day loss ever recorded by the Bloomberg Billionaires Index, as fallout from President Donald Trump's tariff announcement continues to roil global markets. By the way, I just saw this.
which is fantastic in the UK, where so few people invest in stocks. But in America, where they all have 401ks for their pensions, you know, that's fuck your portfolio is a bit frightening.
I know. I'm sorry. I don't know why. I have some sick, twisted part of me that just enjoy this stuff. Anyway, so on with 5 Fact Friday. I don't know why. I'm happy it's the weekend. You're happy it's the weekend too, aren't you?
Oh, Jesus. I have had an absolute, excuse my language. Can I swear at this point?
Yes, don't listen if you don't like swearing. There's going to be swearing.
In the words of Kevin Bloody Wilson, I have had a cunt of a week and my undies have not had a ball. So it's just been a terrible week.
Well, I'm glad you made it through. You're still here, still smiling. And let's now that we've subjected our audience to that, let's actually do some 5 Fact Friday, shall we? So one fact, which everyone already knows, so I haven't included it, is, of course, that on Tuesday this week, I've got to take that off the screen, haven't I? On Tuesday this week, Stamp duty went up. That's not what I wanted to stop sharing. Hang on. I got rid of Stiggy instead of Donald Trump.
I'm cast aside.
Right, there we are. Right, so yeah, stamp duty went up on Tuesday this week, and it went up significantly, and that's going to make moving harder. It's going to have slightly downward pressure on prices. It's going to scare off buyers. But having said that, the signs of activity in the housing market are encouragingly positive. And I'm going to be sharing some of Christopher Watkins' weekly stats, which show that not only have we got the most property on the market that we have for a very long time, including just in the last week, far more properties than ever, but actually transaction volumes in terms of sales being agreed, are back up at pre-COVID sort of 2018 levels. Proportionately, we'll get there, but proportionally, it's the same number of sales, so the same percentage of stock is selling. But there's a larger amount of stock, and therefore there's a larger number of things actually selling. But the percentage of stuff for sale has stayed static, which I thought was interesting. But first of all, the Bank of England, let me just make sure I'm sharing this. The Bank of England released its mortgage approvals for February this week. This is the non-seasonally adjusted graph.
Yeah.
And because the seasonally adjusted one makes it look like mortgage lending went down in February, which it didn't. It didn't, and it wasn't going to because of the stamp duty holiday. It actually went up. So what you can see here is that in December it was 47,000, in January it was 51,000, and in February it was 61,000. Oh, that's great. It's healthy rise. Well, yeah, but actually, when you think that just in October it was 72,000, that it was only 61,000 in February with the stamp duty deadline looming, I think is disappointing. Now, it appears that if you include cash transactions, a lot of cash buying landlords wanted to get their purchase in before the end of March, because stamp duty for them is getting much worse. That's going up, and so there was a lot of landlord activity in terms of buying, and a lot of cash activity. But what I find interesting is to see that number in February not being higher than it was in October is a genuine surprise to me.
Well, isn't it the same as it was in February of 24? Or within spitting distance?
It's 2,000. So it's 2,000 higher than February 24.
If you go back to the stamp duty holiday, so if you were to go, not even after the stamp duty holiday in 22, I think you'll find that from there,
81,000. Yeah. So it was, I genuinely thought there would be more.
I agree. That was my analysis, is that people would rush to buy.
And these are the numbers that I pulled from the Bank of England's data, and I put a link to this below. So February 2024, 59,000. February 2025, just gone 61,000. So only 2,000 more approvals this February than last February. I really would have expected that to be a lot higher. But apparently activity is good. So there's a lot of activity happening among non-mortgage transactions. But for it to only be up 3% on last year for mortgage approvals is surprising. And it tells me that cash purchases were higher. But that doesn't bode well for the rest of this year. However, like I said, we'll come on to the other data later, that there is encouraging data in terms of market activity and transaction volumes. It's genuinely good. So there we are. Stamp duty went up. Mortgage approvals for February came out. We've gone through those. And the next fact for 5 Fact Friday is the nationwide. Here we are. Very, very briefly, the nationwide house price index came out this week. It got no coverage because there was no news. Look, 0% monthly change. And so the journalists went, well, we like it when it's up or down, but we're not going to write about it when it's no change. So just nothing. I mean, annual highest house price growth steady in March. They're still putting annual house price growth at 3.9%. I find that difficult to believe. I mean, that's what their numbers say. That's fine, but Rightmove is at 1.3%, Zoopla's at 1.9%, and the ONS, if you ignore their false headline, is at 2.3%, not 4.6% as per the headline. But there we are. It's kind of saying business as usual from the Halifax. Right, now quickly we'll get on to this is the activity. Now look at that. This is the accumulated number of properties that have come onto the market, so new listings, since January the 1st. We're in week 12, and that's comparing with every year going back to 2017. Look at that. That's a significantly higher number, isn't it, than even the previous highest?
Oh yeah.
That is a major.
There are a lot of people wanting to sell right now.
Exactly that. So that was one graph I thought was interesting. And the other one, so this week, so that white line there is 2025, and all those other colored lines are the same month in previous years. So it's the highest number of properties coming to the market in the week. So not the cumulative year to date, but just this week. At 40.
But does that fill you with hope or dread, Charlie?
Well, being the optimist that I am, and going on to the fact that if you go down here, sales agreed is also higher.
Yep.
I don't really care about how many people are trying to sell. I care about how many people are actually transacting. And the transaction numbers are the highest they've been, according to this data.
So for people who are slow like me, what we're seeing there is about 29,000, 28,500 sales. And if you scroll back up one, how many coming to market?
40,000.
Okay, I mean that seems a healthy proportion of what's coming to market selling.
Yep. So
are we suggesting that the Mexican standoff is finally ending?
Well, I don't think it's that. I think it's more nuanced than that. I think what's happening is that there's just a lot more choice. And with a lot more choice, more buyers are able to find something that fits their criteria, their price, what they're looking for. Because there's always pent up demand to move. If you take the finance out of it, there are always more people who want to move. There are already hundreds of buyers registered with estate agents.
Hey.
Right, there are millions of buyers looking online. So there's always pent up demand. So I see this as a function of there being more choice, more competition, and therefore more buyers are going, well, actually, yeah, I'll buy that one. I'll buy that one.
That sounds good. But look at how shitty government intervention is in terms of, I mean, that stamp duty holiday in 21, boy, does that stick out like a sore thumb.
Yeah. The government should just leave it the hell alone. It really, really should just leave it the hell alone. Okay, so now we are on to, let's have a look at, hang on a second.
Chaos.
Yeah, that's not even me saying that. That's not even me. That's Bloomberg saying that, right? Chaos. UK stocks fall most since 2020, in other words, since COVID, on Trump tariff chaos. The sell-off in stock markets induced by Trump tariffs has extended to a second day, while bond yields are plummeting. Hang on, that's a good thing.
Well,
Well, hang on. I know you've got lots to say about that, but bond yields are plummeting. So those bond borrowing rates are coming down, and what it says to me is that many because retail investors don't buy bonds, right? Institutional investors buy bonds. So what we're seeing is a massive sell-off from equities, and they're all moving their money into government bonds because it's safer, because you have a known quantity and you're going to get a return on that money, etc. So I see pension funds and investors around the world going, right, and it's all down to there's so much uncertainty around the tariff news that's going on at the moment in the negotiations, that they're going, this could go so badly wrong, let's get out. And because all of the world media, most of which is severely anti-Trump, are basically going, doom, the end of the world. It has happened. The world has ended. Trump tariffs are going to kill everything.
For God's sake.
Don't talk
Yeah.
about the fact that oil has dropped by $10 a barrel. No, 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 no. It's terrible. So get out and buy bonds. And so they've all gone, oh, quick, buy bonds because he can't mess around with those too much. I don't
Am
know.
I allowed to mention this now? Or
Or
later? Later.
just give it. Let me go through a couple of these bits and bobs because actually, the S&P. Have I got that? Where's the S&P? I've got. Here we are. So this is stocks hit. So this is US, right? That's the S&P 500. That's nearly 6% down today.
Yeah, but
And
it was 20% up over the last X months.
yeah, I think it's now 20% down on the year
Yeah.
to
And
date. Yeah, well, I agree. I mean, I agree. So, but the way they're talking about it, they don't report the gains with this much
no,
panic.
but this is the problem. When you have such a massive spike where people, we had this conversation many months and also a couple of years ago about how the FTSE was going to break 8,000 and may reach 9,000,
Yeah.
and we would see this big bubble in markets before everything collapsed. This is a correction. At this point, what we've seen in the last 2 days is not a crash. It's not a black swan event. It's not the end of the world. This is simply a reasonable correction, because if you go back a year and look at the S&P gains over that point, yeah, it's only a couple of percent. But to be honest, do we think the world has been more productive in that time?
Yeah, no, not really.
Well, then a couple of percent would make sense, wouldn't it? As opposed to the massive gains that they had achieved earlier.
So, okay, so there are lots of people commenting about this. There are people panicking, but someone made the interesting observation that the volatility index hasn't gone
VIX,
up.
Yep.
Hasn't gone up.
Well, it has. I mean, no, sorry, the VIX is up. It's up, but I mean, nowhere near where it was through the COVID pandemic, and also nowhere near where it was through 2008. But it has risen. I mean, the VIX is not that I was interested, because I don't believe in shorting. But the great thing about the VIX is that you can just get in there before it goes up. You see, it's not shorting; it's just up.
Kicking Mustang says, if the ISA refresh was today, I'd have loaded up on the close.
Yeah.
So he's expecting stuff to happen. Yeah, ISA refresh on Monday. Let's hope Trump holds the line of the weekend before whiplashing the world. All right. So what? Good old Rachel Reeves has been given back a bit of her fiscal headroom by the fall.
But this is, oh God. Okay. I look at this from a societal perspective, and that is a bit scary, because we've got all these divisions in society between the old and the young, the rich and the poor, and so on and so forth. And the reality is that what Trump has done with the tariffs has driven down the yields on bonds and gilts, which means that all of those defined benefit pensions that are heavily dependent and heavily leveraged on LDIs, which are the bond market. So they would take an exposure of 1, and with the LDIs, they multiply it by 4. So the movement on bond yields is massively important to these pension funds. And that's for defined benefit, which is all of our public sector workers and anyone over the age of about 60 who got a defined benefit pension. They have been helped massively. There's been a lot of press or a lot of conversation recently about the repos, the Bank of England repos, the short-term lending effectively for funds overnight, where it's grown massively, and people are saying, well, this is the same as quantitative easing. It's not, but you're quite right. It is bailing out those pension funds, etc., who have been in difficulties because gilt yields have gone up. Well, now they've gone down. The defined benefit pension people are laughing. They're all good. Unfortunately, for those young people whose pensions are mostly in equities, a stock market fall, even though, and I'll say this again, yes, it's a big fall. I mean, we're seeing banks have fallen by 13 to 15%. If you look at American federal banks, by 15 to 20%, there are some big falls across the market. And even in the indices, there are some pretty big falls. But there's been a massive bubble for the last year blowing up. I mean, we went up from 8,000 to 8,800 roughly on the FTSE. It's been a huge increase. So, yeah, it's been pared back, but it's not the end of the world.
Yeah, I go with that.
For people whose pensions are young as they are, all of that money is in equities. So a stock market fall makes a big difference to them. Whereas for the older people, they're sitting there going, oh, no, that's good. This is okay, because all of my money's in bonds. And actually, by the yield going down, the bond is worth more, my pension is worth more. Thank you very much. Yeah. So yet again, we've made a division in society. And I'm not suggesting for one second that Trump organized that with that in mind. He didn't. He's trying to do something completely different. That's just one of the unintended consequences.
Yeah. I think it's Friday and the markets in the US haven't quite closed yet. I think but they're going to close down, aren't they? They're going to close in bear territory almost certainly. I'm very curious to see what happens on Monday.
Oh yeah,
I think on Monday either it's all going to settle down and calm down, or if it doesn't, if it all keeps going down over the weekend, we might be into.
This is not the black swan event. Do you remember when we had this conversation?
No, I agree. And actually, yeah, because there's no shock, is there?
No.
He warned he would do this all along. Everyone's had plenty of time to prepare for this.
The other thing, liquidity. A lot of people have been talking, and Patricia, who is online. Hello, Patricia. And I deeply respect your viewpoints on this, and you have much more experience in the real world of these things. But in terms of banks' ability to lend to borrowers, whether that be mortgages or personal loans, this stock price fall makes absolutely not a fucking jot of difference to them. Now, they may look at risk and they may be slightly less eager to lend to people they see as risky. However, the stock price, honestly, people have been going, oh my God, the banks have dropped. Barclays has lost 13%. Well, it won't lend to anyone. That's it. It's all over. It's like, no. That is not the way it works. They have their reserves. This is the share price makes a difference for people who want dividends from it. It doesn't make an awful lot of difference to their ability to lend to people.
Oh, are you there?
Oh, yeah,
he came back. It doesn't make any difference to their ability to lend. Okay, so you're not concerned that this could trigger a liquidity event anytime soon?
No, not really. No.
Kicking Mustang says, in my opinion, this is a once-in-a-decade opportunity to go long yank stocks. They're cheap prices. These tariffs will be rolled back. Trump is a savage negotiator. This is what this is, a brutal negotiation. And I agree with that. And already I can't remember which ones, but already some of the countries are actually capitulating and going, okay, no, we won't do then. And then, so America's already saying, okay, if you don't, then we won't, and we'll reduce the tariff. It's just.
I'm not even sure. You see, again, Kicking Mustang, someone who I think is really clued in and savvy. I'm not sure it's a negotiation. I think how the press have made this big thing about, oh well, it's so stupid they're even tariffing penguins on uninhabited islands. I think Trump has deliberately just gone, fuck it, blanket the shit out of it. It will scare the crap out of everyone. And then as time goes by, it's not a negotiation tactic. It is a scare the crap, and then we'll look at what we can actually do.
I think that's another way of describing a negotiation tactic.
Oh, well, yes. Okay. Then in which case, his idea of a brutal negotiation tactic, yeah, I agree. Yeah. It's a little like Elon Musk saying, if you don't have to add 10% back in after you have cut something down, then you haven't cut it down properly.
Yeah.
You know, I agree. I agree. But this, when the newspapers focus on penguins in Antarctica, that's just dumb. It's dumb because they don't understand the reasoning behind it.
No, I know that's the problem. We have a lot of underqualified journalists commenting on all this, don't we?
Oh, they don't do maths and they don't really do logic.
No, and they don't do complicated financial stuff either. But what they do is, wow, headlines.
Well, they have to, because if they don't get the advertising revenue, they're out of a job.
Right, now we've got one. I have flagged your super chat. Don't worry, I will get to that. I just want to stick on topic now, but we will come to that. I'll do it quickly now. So S, thank you very much. Says my missus wants to go bigger in 5 years or so. Bought 10k under 4 months ago. First time buyer. 75% loan to value. Am I screwed? Lol. Might be due to a child on the way. Okay. Congratulations if you've got a child on the way. Did you buy leasehold or freehold? I need to know that before I can tell you how screwed you are or aren't. But 75% loan to value, and if you bought 10% under asking price, and you're not in the biggest falling areas, I don't think you are. No, I think no, not worried about that. Nothing there makes you go, oh no, you're in trouble, which is unusual because normally when people do that, I'm going, yeah, I'm really sorry, you're in trouble. But unless you bought a brand new leasehold, if you bought a new build leasehold 5 years ago, it might be slightly trickier. Let me know if you did. Right. Nick Jones says, what did Stig predict again in the death in poverty video?
Well, death in poverty. Strangely, it was the title, and that was the way it works. I said we would be beholden to the state, and we would work on the building sites and in the farms and the fields in order to earn our universal basic credit, and that our pensions would be worth nothing, our care costs would be huge, and between assisted suicide and the inability to house ourselves, we would probably end up in shelter as a service blocks where we bought shelter with CBDC tokens at 4 and 8 hour time increments with an extra heating cost for the pro subscription. So yeah, I was really fucking upbeat, mate. That's all I got to say. Very upbeat. It was good. Life was good.
And for those of you who are new here, what you heard Alex just say, which sounds like some kind of dystopian, hellish novel, is actually what he actually thinks is going to actually happen. And so far, it is moving exactly in the direction which he predicted 3-4 years ago now.
Yeah, pretty much.
Because as you've always said, you just see it as an unavoidable mathematical certainty. There's no way getting out of it.
Well, I tell you what, if we could just persuade all of these nice people here, Little Carol, Jean-Marc Bordeaux, Patricia, Boz, if we could persuade them to bang a lot and have a lot more kids, just and bear in mind, I am not a big fan of Elon Musk. Not a mass. I know you are much more of a fan than I am, but his one thing about we need to shag and have kids, unless we change the financial system in the first world, which we can do, and CBDCs, etc., debt jubilees might do that. But unless we do that, the only way out of it is to have more fucking kids. And I know you've done your bit. You put 3 in the world, and there's only 2 of you. Like, Anne-Marie will tell you to go fuck yourself.
Yeah. Although I haven't given up negotiations, I'm still I've managed to keep this possibility open. She's giving me targets I have to meet, and if I meet the targets in the required time frame, then maybe, just possibly.
Not a chance. Not a chance in hell.
I'm saying 3 more. She's fuck off. 3 more. Maybe 1 if you're lucky. 3 more. I want 3 more kids. But yeah, no, you're right. I mean, not having enough kids is one of the root causes of our downfall, isn't it?
Yeah.
The return of the workhouses, says Perry James.
Yes, effectively. Although they won't be, you won't live in a workhouse. You'll live in a shelter as a service unit, but you will be picked up by the omnibus and taken out to the fields to go and work.
I want to say hello to little Carol. Little Carol, new name, don't recognise it. Hello, Charlie. Just to let you know, I have such a sad life. I'm sorry to hear that. Home alone, and I'm watching you, despite the fact that I'm not buying or selling. God, there must be nothing on Netflix. Anyway, I'm very happy to have you here, Carol. Thank you for watching.
Yes, and picking Mustang, quantitative shagging. It's not easing because that would require Vaseline. This is just the shagging.
Oh, they can't say this stuff on Bloomberg.
I tell you what, John Stepek would love to. I think Merrin would love to, but she just can't say it.
No, I know. They are required. They are. Yes, they are. They have to stick within the rule, the bounds of their corporate guidelines, don't you? Oh no, little Carol says, sorry, can't help you with having kids. I'm 68, done my kids bit. But don't mind the banging bit.
Well done, Carol. Well done.
Oh, this is good fun. This is good fun.
Well, you're helping the mental health of England, if not the child
I'm putting a smile on
situation.
your face. That's all that matters, really. Do we have? This is great fun. This is much more fun than normal 5 Fact Fridays. Just the Truth says, I'm similar to you. He's talking about S, 70% loan to value, and I got 15k under asking. And S, who asked that question earlier, said no, it's freehold. If you bought 5 years ago, 75% loan to value freehold, you should be okay, unless you got very unlucky, unless you really badly overpaid in one of the worst areas for price falls. So yeah, that's good. Yeah, I know people always think that I'm Dr. Doom and Gloom, but I see chinks of silver lining in these clouds of tariff uncertainty. If oil prices come down and stay down, that is a good thing for the whole world, right?
Well,
For
it
consumers,
would be better if gas prices came down and stayed down.
they've gone up.
Yeah. which predicates our heating bills.
Yeah, but oil, like the oil, petrol feeds into transport network, that kind of stuff.
People like you bastards who get EVs, and I know you've got rid of it now. I know, but you had it for a long time. And this is the problem, is that people are moving away from oil at a rapid rate. And still they're dependent on gas because they think that that's a bit better and all this sort of stuff. But oil doesn't have the impact that it had in the 70s, let's say, when prices went up massively. We had the crisis.
David M says US stocks could drop another 20% and they'd still be overpriced. I've heard a lot of people saying that.
Exactly, which is why I'm not concerned. I'm sure. Look, if you got into the market, if you were a 25-year-old who got your first bonus last year and you threw everything into the stock market, believing that everything was going up because you'd seen it go up for the last year, and you're only 25 and you know no better, you must be shitting yourself now because you've just lost 10 to 15%. As an old person, I look at it and go, it's a correction. It's not even, this is not a 2001, a 2004, a 2008, a 2020 event. It's just a correction because the markets are acting really like petulant children who don't like, they are teenagers who are, tariffs, that is so unfair. I don't like it. Mom, take it away.
JP Gordon says it would be great if young people pooled resources to buy mansions or large houses to circumvent Stig's draw living dystopia. That'd be actually, that's a great idea.
Well, hang on a second.
Like 10 or 12
Isn't
people
that
getting
what
together.
all of our friends did as squatters in the 1980s?
Yes. And all these big drafty mansions are not going to afford to heat now. You get 10 or 12 of you together and have a commune. Fantastic fun. Make lots of babies. And nobody knows who the father is.
Yeah.
Okay, this is taking a weird turn, this one. AI will take lots of jobs. Payne and Son says, AI will take lots of jobs, still seeing Ipswich houses overvalued to add to the pain for many. Yes. John Buffalo, I am 97, says these people are selling books. Which people? I don't have a book to sell yet. Don't know if I ever will, but I haven't got one at the moment. You got a book to sell, Alex?
No.
You should probably write one. Jacek D says, when will terraced or semi-detached house prices ever go down? Ever, please.
Oh well,
Never?
terraced, not in the near future.
No.
Semis may go down because they're too expensive to maintain. And this is the thing: is that people underestimate the cost of maintenance, and although 80% of our building stock has been built in the last 80 years, there's a lot of work to be done on those Victorian ones that are older.
Yeah, I think that is it's impossible to quantify it, but I think one of the things causing the standoff, and someone asked a question about the standoff, which I'll try and remember who that was. One of the things about the standoff between buyers and sellers that wasn't true in previous difficult markets is the sudden increase in the costs of maintenance and repairs and refurbishment. Right, the costs of those are now much higher than they were as a proportion of the house price. And so buyers are looking at these very nice, attractive, charming, older, slightly tatty houses and going, what's it going to cost to do that one up? And whereas it might have been 25 grand 5 years ago, it's now 50 grand.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And the sellers are not factoring that in at all. And when you move into a house 10 years ago and you redecorate it and it's all lovely and new and shiny, and you live in it for 10 years, in your eyes, it's still lovely, new and shiny, redecorated. Because
not to a buyer.
Not to a buyer who walks in and sees what you see as signs of love, but what they see is wear and tear.
Yeah.
So that's something. Just looking for other questions. I don't think we're anywhere close to UBI. Do you, Alex?
No, we can't afford it. For fuck's sake. I mean, don't get me wrong.
CBDC happens, it could happen, couldn't
that is partly with CBDC. That is partly the possible end game, but only when the robots are able to do all of the work that is currently manual work that is currently done by humans. When we live in a post-scarcity society where the robots farm for us, they build houses for us, they do all manual labor for us, then we could potentially have a universal basic income because money will be of no consequence.
Right. Okay. Yeah. I still think it is a basic, this is just my pure opinion, right? It is a basic tenet of human satisfaction to feel that your existence for the day was worthwhile and had a purpose. And therefore, I think one of the reasons why work is healthier mentally than not working is because if you just get given stuff so you don't need to work, you start to question the purpose of your existence much more. And that's always really, really depressing. So I think UBI is a bad idea. Now, I mean, I'm not saying that the government couldn't supply certain basic utilities as standard for everybody, but an income? No.
But that's universal credit, mate. I mean, that is what universal credit is. And that is paid to people who require it. The idea of a basic income to everybody, I mean, literally the entire population, is nuts.
S says it bought 4 months ago, not 4 years ago. Okay. And looking to move in 5 years or so. You should be okay. Don't expect to make as much money as you might have thought you're going to make over 5 years. If you do, great, but don't expect to. But 75% loan to value, I think you're okay. You're good there. I'm just going to touch on this because I know there are a lot of people. I'm hesitant to say this, right? Someone called Bray is just going, buy Bitcoin.
Bitcoin solves everything.
I don't know what the problem is, but the answer is buy Bitcoin.
It solves everything.
Whatever your question is, the answer is buy Bitcoin because it fixes everything. Fixes everything.
Yeah, it solves everything.
I've got to the point now where I'm really just starting to really make me cross. Like, by all means, buy Bitcoin. I'm not against buying Bitcoin at all. I own some Bitcoin. I can't find it, but I do own some Bitcoin. And it's a fun thing to have in your portfolio, but stop pretending it fixes anything. It has the wild potential, perhaps one day, to improve certain things.
No, it
Everyone going,
doesn't. It's a bunch of
okay,
arse.
okay. I know you don't think it does. I don't think it does either. I and
You were
you're being
just trying to be polite.
what I'm trying to say is I accept that there is a theory that in the land of unicorns and rainbows, it fixes everything, right? Every time I say
How?
fix
How?
housing, fix everything, everyone goes, no, don't fix housing, fix money, fix everything.
Yeah, how? How
How?
does
And
Bitcoin?
this is my point. This is what I want to say to everyone who ever posts Bitcoin fixes this or don't fix housing, fix money. No one ever says how you do it, so it's pointless to say it. It's just so frustrating that yes, in the ideal world, maybe you could, but in the practical world, you can't do it. We
It's
can't
not
even if we want
transactional. You can't use it as money.
until the governments decide to do it. There's nothing. So does it, in theory, potentially fix everything? Perhaps. I'm not saying it doesn't, but in reality, it
Yeah.
doesn't. And just everyone going, just buy Bitcoin because it fixes everything. Buy Bitcoin because it fixes everything. Buy Bitcoin by all means to hedge against currency deflation. That's fine. I'm not saying that currency isn't being debased, but that is not the root cause of all evil. I
Yeah.
promise you. Do you want the root cause of all evil? Government intervention.
Charlie, you have lost your. It may be me or it may be you, but you are very blocky.
Okay. Not sure what I can do about that. Is my internet going slow, is what you're saying?
Yeah, your voice is perfect. It's synced perfectly. You're just very pixelated.
Okay, nothing I can do about that. Let's keep going.
Okay.
Um, so
At
yes,
least
anyway.
you don't look like a 17-year-old version of yourself with hair. That's confusing.
So yes, please, if you're watching this and you ever want to type in my X timeline or anywhere in the comments, buy Bitcoin or Bitcoin fixes this or fix money, please elaborate on exactly
Really?
how you would do
How?
it. What
How?
would be step one? Otherwise, please accept the fact that you have been programmed to pump your stock. And that's all
Yeah.
you're doing. You
Please,
are a stock
please tell
pumper.
me how transactionally Bitcoin can work. Can I buy stuff? I'd like to go and buy a fillet steak from Waitrose with Bitcoin. How do we do that? More importantly, how do X million people do that simultaneously?
Exactly. Kicking Mustang says UBI only works with land value tax. Otherwise, it creates massive inequality.
Yeah, correct. No, he is absolutely
Yep.
correct.
Yep.
And you know I have an issue with land value tax in terms of how you value the land.
Yeah.
But in a utopian world, and bear in mind utopia is the land that never existed, but in a utopian world, I absolutely agree with kicking Mustang in the same way that I love watching his videos where he shoots people in the head. Um, he's spot on. I
Yeah.
just think it's going to be hard to implement. But hard does not mean impossible.
Yeah, but then the fixed money people will say the same.
Yeah. And so we go back to what is pragmatic and what is reasonable. And I go back to this. Once we have robots that will do the manual labor and fix our food supply and our house building and all of the other manual jobs from factories and growth, etc., then perhaps we will end up in that situation. But we can't do that with a standard fiat currency. It will all have to be digital, which is why CBDCs are the way we're going to end up.
John Parnell says, in my North London area, there are an awful lot of houses being modernised and extended. It is a lot cheaper than moving home. That is also true,
Yeah,
mostly because of
that's
stamp
been the
duty.
case from the 90s.
Yeah,
Don't you remember when your
yeah.
friends went, I could move, but I'll just build into the loft. I'll just add an extra bedroom.
And it's not just the money. It's the uncertainty of moving. It's the stress and uncertainty in life on hold.
But that's
And
one of the problems, Charlie. What that has caused is it means that now there are so few bungalows in this country because people bought them because they were cheap, because they were retirement homes. So they bought them and then they built an additional story. They got the planning permission and they put this stuff in. And now old people can't downsize because there are no homes that were built for downsizers. Everyone has extended and built into every home they could. And
Mhm.
so the loft space is no longer a loft space. It's 2 extra bedrooms and a bathroom. Well, I'm a retired couple or a single. I just want to have a decent place to live. Fuck me, do I need 4 bedrooms and 3 bathrooms to look after? No, not so much. And we have destroyed the downsizing market by refurbishing and adding to every single property we move into.
Yeah. So I'm just also watching questions here. So okay, Square Eyes does make a good point. If I have Bitcoin, at least I can sell it quickly, whatever it's worth. Unlike my house, that
Yeah, well, that's true. Yeah.
absolutely
There's a
100%.
6 month difference between Bitcoin and your house.
Which is exactly why I always say buy a home because you want to live in it. Don't expect to make money. And actually, someone's asked the question: if you were buying a Yachek D, where's it gone? He asked the question. Oh, I can't find it now. I scrolled away. I think he asked, if you were buying purely for investment, would you buy a flat or a house? And the answer to that question is, if you're buying purely for investment, it would depend on the individual rental yield of those ones. If you're talking about living in one, well, again, if you're talking about living in it, you can't exclude the utility of living in it, what it means for your life, right? If you're talking about buying a flat or a house but not living in it as investment, that's a separate thing. That's a long conversation. It's a good question. There's no obvious answer. It depends on lots of things. Generally speaking, stuff that has service charge, not so good on the investment side. If you're talking about capital appreciation. Ba, 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 ba.
You gotta love Boz. Bitcoin is mainly just for criminals. Mate, that has not been true for at least 15 years. You know, when it first started, within a couple of years after, maybe. No.
Stop that, Lucas says, is the current Mexican standoff a specific feature of this market, or was it the same in 2008, 1995? It's much more pronounced this time round. In 2008, the market went to shit because there weren't any mortgages. It wasn't buyers refusing to pay the price.
Banks weren't lending; they just would not give you money.
It wasn't a price standoff in 2008, and in 1995, it was different again. It wasn't so much a price standoff; it was just again, it was
but it wasn't 95. It was 1990.
Yeah.
95 was the best time in the world to buy. It was the cheapest. If you could travel back in time, you would have bought in 95 in real terms.
I did. I can tell you something, right? Talk about pure dumb luck, right? I bought a flat in Brighton.
No, not dumb luck. Your age. You were lucky because of the year you were born.
Yep. And the year that I happened to be in a position to go and buy a flat.
Yeah.
And I bought it for £23,500 in Brighton, a lower ground floor flat within walking distance of the station to commute to London.
At the age of 23.
At the age of 23. And I lived in it while I redecorated it. And then I rented it out. And I bought it for cash. Rented it out. I didn't have any other money. It was like all my cash went to that flat. And less than a year later, the tenant bought it off me for £55,000. I didn't even have to pay agent's fees.
Doubled your money, and you'd had rental income for a year.
I had rental income. I had like I was paying £400 a month, which was amazing considering what I paid for it. I had £5,000 a year yield on a £23,000 flat. It's 25% of what it was. And I thought, well, I must have just got lucky. I did exactly the same again. I bought a flat in Hastings, a 2-bedroom garden flat in Hastings for £19,000, which was in desperate need of redecoration. I thought it was going to take a few weeks to redecorate, so I put it on the rental market. And on the next day, someone said, I'll rent it as it is. I'll rent it, I'll take it, and I'll redecorate it while I'm in there. Okay, I didn't really want to redecorate anyway. That's fine. And guess what they did? They bought it off me for £38,000. I was like, this is really easy money. So you're right. It was insane. And then I did the same in London. And then I actually got bored of it. I thought
It's too easy to double
too
my
easy.
money every 2 years.
Yeah. I literally got. I was such an idiot. I should have kept doing that. Change is coming says 4 and 8 hour blocks sounds like it's being used for other services. I think he's referring to your a shelter as a service.
Oh, mate, I tell you what, even with the blue pills, and I'm talking the 100 mil, 4 hours is the absolute max. My lung capacity just can't take it anymore. The idea of an 8 hour, fuck it
I
up.
blame myself. Why did I ask the question? I blame myself. Square Eye says, so what's the vision for the next 5 years for those of us who are stuck?
Yeah, but stuck where, Square Eyes?
Yeah,
Stuck
could
in
you
what way?
elaborate on that?
Yeah, explain stuck. Stuck
JP
renting, stuck with a
Gordon,
mortgage, stuck in a
yeah.
flat that's got cladding issues, stuck where?
JP Gordon says UBI is tough to get off. The system encourages sole traders to be attached to it as a net.
Yeah, but there is no UBI, so it's not tough to get
Do you
off.
mean universal
There
credit?
is no system. Okay, UC, but sole traders, I don't understand where that's coming from. That statement makes no sense.
There's Jacek's question about house or flat. It depends. I need to ask more questions about when you say purely investment perspective. Purely investment means not living in it. But if you mean living in it, again, it changes everything. Andrew Lamb says, what do you think of countries doing trade with each other, excluding the USA? Trade with anyone, trade with everyone. I think if you're talking about everyone going, right,
We're not going to involve America
anymore. No. Sorry, did you want to buy our stuff? No, we're not going to sell our stuff to you now. Just on principle, we're sulking. I don't think. I think there's a lot of very hand-wringy reaction to this.
Yeah, but in the same way that the market is being like a petulant teenager at the moment. Yeah. By the way, have you seen Carol's? Have you seen little Carol's statement?
Hang on a second. Just one more thing on that tariff thing. Yeah, I heard someone saying that they export to America, and so obviously the extra tariffs don't help. But they're competing with people who are exporting to America from China, and they've got 34% extra. So suddenly they're more competitive than their Chinese competitors. And actually, it's helping non-Chinese countries with lower are going to do better. So there are many nuances to this. It's not straightforward. Sorry, what were you going to say?
Little Carol, she said, I first bought in 1983. So I'm guessing, she's told us, it is true about being the right age.
Yes.
And it really is. It's that simple. It is that simple. If you are over a certain age, although, and this is the bit that people miss, I know people who are roughly 6 years older than me that bought in 1989 when oh God, was his name? What was the Chancellor's name?
Nigel Lawson.
Yes, when Lawson had allowed £60,000 of Myris,
Nigella's dad,
income relief. Yeah, but he then told people he was dropping it in the future, so everyone went out to buy, and they bought, and they lost their houses. I mean, they handed over the keys. They lost everything they had. They lost everything. The 1990 crash was worse than 2007, 2008 by a country fucking mile, because there was no recompense from the banks. There was no quantitative easing. There was no 0% interest rates. It was just, oh, well, you're fucked. Hand over the keys and pay what you owe.
Like Thomas Rome here says, bought my first flat in 2007 with a 5% deposit, lost 20% the following year.
Yep, no doubt.
It can and does happen. But luckily, he says, mortgage rates were so cheap, I didn't care about the value. So you can.
Well, exactly.
Fair enough. Square Eyes has come back. Says, I'm stuck, as is my aged mum, in separate leasehold flats, and we don't know how long we have. Oh, that's still okay. That just sounds awful.
That's still
but there's a lot more information needed on that. But sorry to hear you're stuck. The English Voice Narrations says in 1995 house prices were only 3 times average salaries. So no, it wasn't the same in those days. Prices were where they should be.
No, they
Yes.
weren't. In 1995, houses were 4.6 times average salaries. Please, I have the charts. You can look on
Okay, yes.
X and you'll
Yeah.
find everything there.
But okay, but the point still stands. It wasn't 8 or whatever it is now. 8
It's
times.
7.9 average. And the increase went from, and you may notice a certain political party, from 96 until 2007, the average increased from 4.6 to 7.9. It's almost impossible to put that genie back in the bottle once you have lent that much money. And that is why when people talk about house prices, it has nothing to do with supply and demand. Fucking, that's an idiocy. Stop thinking about it. It is everything to do with wages and how much you can borrow. If a company says to you, you can only borrow over 25 years, then the house prices are set at that level. If they say you can borrow over 40 years, house prices increase by 80%. If they say you can borrow 4 times your joint salaries, house prices are X. If they say you can borrow 8 times your joint salaries over 40 years, again, they increase. And this is where people are just so dumb. House prices are nothing to do with supply and fucking demand. We have 31 million homes in the UK. We only have 28.8 million households. House prices are set by wages and your ability to borrow and the bank's willingness to lend. When Rachel Reeves, as our Chancellor, says to the FCA, loosen lending, allow people to have 100% mortgages again, and allow people to take out credit for 45 years, she is basically saying, let's pump house prices. Let's make them bigger, make it bigger. Because she is, and I say this unreservedly, and it is now 9 o'clock in 10, 9,
Okay.
8,
No, no,
7,
no, no, no. Just say it.
6.
You've already said the C word anyway. So
She
just go.
is a cunt, a
Oh,
total and utter thick as shit fucking
what?
cunt.
Why didn't I?
Between the national insurance on employers and now she is a total cunt.
I guess
Sorry,
they'll be knocking on your door in the morning. Okay.
I don't give a fuck. She
No,
really fucking irritates. Oh, still 1.5 million homes. No, hang on, Rachel. You told us you'd only get to 1.3 million, which is only 30% higher than it would have been if you'd not touched anything. Oh no, 1.5 million. No,
I know
cunt you.
it's sort of joke. But just going back, so you're saying that the previous Labour government are the ones who extended borrowing last time around from 4.5 up to what did you say it was?
4.6 to 7.9. Yes, it was Tony Blair and Gordy in particular, who had the worst rating of any chancellor or prime minister in 60 years by Grok. He is the ultimate cunt.
So are you saying that one of the biggest reasons that house prices are where they are today in terms of much less affordable in relation to salaries is down to that growth under the previous Labour government?
Yes,
Right.
because they
Explain.
allowed
Yeah.
125% borrowing,
Yeah.
not 80% loan to value, 125%. They allowed that. They got rid of the Bank of England as the arbiter of all the lenders. They said, no, you fucked up Barings, you go away. And so the Bank of England went away and they were just left to deal with interest rates. And they created the FSA. But the FSA were a bunch of cunts. The FSA were fucking useless. And the FSA allowed Northern Rock to say to people, you, mate, can self certify. You can tell us how much you can pay. We don't care. You self certify and we'll give you 125%. You think the property's worth 500K? No. No, it's not. It's worth 600K. We'll give you 125%. I tell you what, You go for it, take the money. That Labour government from 97 until 2010 fucked us in the arse royally. GDP collapsed from then on.
I love how there's no discrimination possible when it comes to being fucked in the ass. It happens. It can happen to all of
Yeah,
us.
but they did not. I tell you what, Tony, weapons of mass destruction, let's go to war, didn't
Yeah.
even bother to slap some lube on the end of his cock
No.
before he bent you over and fucked you up the ass. It's past 9. I've checked. It's 9:02. I can say what the fuck I like. Fuck you and the whore you ready.
Last time you did this, you made me delete the video the next day. I don't want to delete this video. There's lots of good stuff in it. So
No, actually, I've said nothing. I've said nothing so far that I am upset by.
okay, cool. But I just we got lots of witnesses here, right? I don't want to delete this video tomorrow. So just make sure you don't say anything. You're going to wake up tomorrow and go, "Oh, I wish I hadn't said that."
An exotic doll. I'm not an Aries. I'm a Taurus. It should have been obvious.
By the way, there is yes, there is for anyone who's offended. You don't have to watch. Okay, no one's forcing you to watch. Okay, I don't really know where to go from here. We have a healthy number of people watching us live, so I feel like I should keep going. But looking for questions. So LB says, I'm in the standoff scenario as cash buyer, and every place needs a lot of money spending on it, and agents and sellers think they're livable, not factoring costs to sort and price on the higher side to start with. Exactly, yes. They're pricing on the higher side to start with, they're not factoring in costs to sort them out. As a cash buyer, how much is reasonable to offer lower? There's never a flat rate percentage. You've got to do it on an individual property. But the point is, what you should say to those agents and sellers, I've been talking to someone else in this situation today, is you should say, no, if it was worth what you're asking, you would have sold it by now.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
If it was worth it, it wouldn't still be on the market after 3 to 6 months. That's just a fact, right? If you are correct about its value being that asking price, why is it still for sale, sir? It is not worth what you're asking, because the definition of that would be that you have sold it by now. And do you have any other offers? No, you don't. Mine is the only offer. I am the market for this property. Therefore, you should advise your client to accept my offer, because if they want to sell it, otherwise they can't sell it. But LB, it's what it's worth to you every time. It's what it's worth to you. You work out in each individual case how much you want to spend on it to do it up, therefore how much it's worth to you, and that's how you work it out. Question, Dan says, were 4 times lending not based on one income rather than 2? Now with parents to put, yeah. So it was.
Yes, but
yeah.
that's the entire point, is that, and this goes back to the fertility rate in this country. It's everything joined together. Is that, yes, if you looked back in time, you had 4.6 times, and it was over 25 years. And you went, oh, okay. And that meant that often only one person worked seriously in the household. And people will argue with me and tell me it's difficult. But what I mean is, I knew with my parents, many of their wives used to do things like market research. And they would work afternoons. They'd work round the school times. They just did a few hours a week. Maybe 10, 15, 20 hours of work a week outside that earned money. And there was one breadwinner. And I know that's an old concept and not something that people want to accept these days. But as we move through the Blair premiership, it wasn't that women were going to university in greater numbers, because they had already been going to university in greater numbers. It was simply that they were allowed to borrow more because they changed the lending rules when the FSA turned up. And what happened was everyone went, oh crap, we want that house. We want that house. Well, how much does it cost? Well, it costs 200,000. But we can borrow 250. And it became this ridiculous situation where house prices tripled and I do mean this, Charlie, and you, they literally tripled between 1995 and 2007. And they tripled because people, humans, male and female, are fucking competitive.
Mhm.
And they want that house. They want the good house, and everyone knows which one is the good house. And so they argue over it and they go, well, if the bank will lend me at this rate and I can afford to pay it, I'll take it. And house prices just went through the fucking roof. And the problem is, you can't wind it back.
No.
Now that you've got to 7.9%, it's been the same since
So 7.9
2000.
times earnings, not 7.9%. 7.9.
Sorry, 7.9 times earnings.
Yeah.
And you go, well, that's just two people. Yes, it is. But that means two people working full time. And
Yeah.
guess what? That
Yeah.
means no time for the kids, no time for anything else.
No time for making babies. I mean, this is the point, and you make. Yeah, I saw a really interesting meme yesterday that I'm sure probably other people have seen before, but it was, it was someone said it was an amazing psyop how people persuaded women that um, being a housekeeper, being a housewife, and raising a family was oppressive and slavery, but working for a corporation and not being able to have time for a
No,
family.
my
It's
mother,
absolutely fine. It's liberating. Go
yeah,
and be tied into, yes, go and be liberated until you can borrow money to pay for a house. Well,
my
you won't need
mother,
it. You don't need a big house anymore because you're not having any children. Anyway.
seriously, my mother, who worked for, she was an art student, but a good artist. She worked for Condé Nast, and she did all the touch up on their photos and all this sort of stuff. She did the italics in the magazine, etc. She was better paid than my father, who had a chemistry first from Edinburgh and came to work for Exxon as one of their top graduate fast track students. She was earning more money than him. But, but, she gave that up. She gave that up because he said in those days you could say this shit. You can't say it now, but he said, no wife of mine needs to go to work, etc. And to be honest, she took a big lifestyle cut for the first few years of their marriage. But then, of course, he did very well, and she picked well, and everything picked up. But she stayed home. Her life involved taking care of her two children, taking care of the dog, taking care of the house, walking around the park, cooking fantastic meals. And as an artistic person, it was an outlet. And also, she painted a lot. So, all of those things. And you go, but mum, you could have continued to work in a magazine, had a boss who would have shouted at you and given you a hard time. And and then you would have to learn technology. She hates technology. No, but you would have to have learned it because in your job, tech took over. It all became IT in terms of touching up art, etc. So you would have had to have learned that. She's like, no, I didn't want. I didn't want. Isn't it wonderful to have been born at the right time?
Yeah. We've got some very good questions coming in. They're quite serious questions. Are you in a fit state for any serious questions? Just a
Yeah,
couple.
I can do it. I can do a serious question.
So, Leo Lees was just saying, how, my God, I'd love to be a housewife and not have to work. So John HS says, I appreciate Stig dropping the C bomb at exactly 8:59 p.m. A round of applause from Chris Jordan for you as well. And Harry Darts 1969 says, you should know that bark is Cockney rhyming slang for cunt. Barkley Hunt.
Hunt, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Exotic Doll says, is now a good time to buy a new build? Is now a good
No,
never
no,
a good time to buy a
no,
new build?
no.
Let's just answer this briefly, okay?
I'm going to let you do this.
The only time it makes sense to buy any kind of new build, before we get into whether it's flats or houses and these, right, is if it's the house you want to live in for a very long time. Okay, if you think you're going to be moving in anything under 10 years, you won't do well. Again, right time. Some people got lucky, but now, looking forward from now, Buying a new build, you are paying more than you would if it was being sold privately. You are paying retail price for profit margins, and you'll be maxed out on what you pay. And you will not be able to sell it for the same amount for 5 years at least, even if the market continues to sort of creep up for that particular property. Stamp duty, I mean, it's just made it harder to buy them. I mean, some of them are offering to pay for stamp duty, but and is it a new build? Yeah, so a house definitely better than a flat. Always get, I mean, if you get a good quality new build house and you're going to live in it for a very long time, there's nothing wrong with that, right? That's good. If you pay it, you're buying it to live in. It's going to be a home. You're going to pay for mortgage still there a long time, and it's a house, not leasehold. So you've got no service charges, no estate charges, or any kind of that kind of bullshit. You own it outright, freehold. It's yours, and you pay off the mortgage. You have a secure home to live. Some of those new builds are fantastic. There are some really good quality, especially if you go to smaller new build firms. They can be family-owned new build companies where they care about the individuals running those businesses, care about the reputation of what they're building. Yeah, but if you're buying off a massive house builder who's pile and high,
then fuck them.
Just I wouldn't. I mean, some of you said, well, we haven't got a choice. That's all we can afford. Well, then just negotiate hard. Go and read and watch my videos about negotiating and not overpaying and being in control of that kind of stuff. Someone B says, I'd love to have a stay-at-home parent and have my partner working, or vice versa. Working isn't what it's cracked up for. Not anymore, it's not, is it?
Someone B, you are 100% correct.
Yeah. Bring on the crash as long as we keep
Johnny,
one of our jobs.
It's one of my big theories, bugbears, whatever you want to call it. I look at my parents, and my mother, much as we have issues, my mother is fantastic. She keeps an incredible household, and she cooks incredibly, and she is welcoming, and she's wonderful. And my father at work, when he did work, he hasn't for a long time, but when he did work, was totally dedicated to that. He rocked up, and guess what? All he had to do was step into a shower in the morning, and his ironed shirt was fucking waiting for him, as was his pressed suit, which he stepped into. It was like a robot just handed these things. The food was downstairs.
Wallace and Gromit sliding into his.
Correct. Because my mother fixed everything. And what it meant was my mother excelled to the point where we used to eat Michelin-star meals. I mean, I'm kidding. Chicken breast with pear puree in cream sauce with morel mushrooms. That would be a Friday evening dinner.
Yeah. Well, she sounds like a miserable lady.
My father ended up as an EVP at Exxon EMEA. He had 2,000 people working for him and stuff. And, both people excelled because they just stuck in their lane. The problem we have today is when you spread that and everyone's supposed to do everything and we've got to do half. No one is very good at anything because humans are not very good at multitasking. And so what ends up happening is you both try and do half of everything and you're basically shit at it. When I go to my friends' houses and I look at them, they are dirtier than my parents' house was when I was a kid. The food they cook, and believe me, I sit there and I tell them how lovely it is and what a wonderful meal it cooked me, but it's shit. And not only that, they earn less between them, and you sit there and go, well, you both have salaries. Yeah, but actually, technically, you're earning less. No one here is excelling in anything. No. You are both average at everything.
Well, except for child rearing, they did that well. Your parents. No. Listen, but that was a good. Listen, I want to put this. Look at the comment on screen now. JP Gordon says, "I worked hard in film industry in affiliation with British cinematographer. I was educated to be competitive. I had success and no children. It was not
worth it.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm sorry to hear that. That's sad to hear, but this is a salutary tale, isn't it? I mean, there are a lot of. I'm getting an increasing number of younger viewers now watching this because I've been arguing about whether young people have a shot or not, and I'm saying no. If you rely on the government, no, you're fucked. The only chance. I mean, genuinely, right? If you rely on British society to just provide
Yes,
you with a
you're right.
career,
You're right.
you've got no fucking chance. You've got no
You're right.
fucking chance.
You're right.
You cannot earn enough money to have a decent life if you just go to school, do your exams, come out. You've got to. You got to. And the argument I've been having is, you can either choose to accept that, in which means you'll be living in very unpleasant conditions and complaining and being bitter about it, understandably and justifiably as well. It is absolutely justifiable to complain about the state of what's on offer now for young people looking for careers and how to make a life for themselves. But at the point you realize that, you have a choice to make. Do you accept what's on offer and go, well, I'm stuck with that? Or do you go, fuck that for a game of soldiers? That's not good enough. I've got to find a way to have an okay life. And there are ways to do that. It requires more effort, but you also get more back from doing it. And it's kicked off a real hornet's nest from people going, not everyone can be an entrepreneur. No, they haven't got to. And there's one guy, no one ever suggested everyone has to be an entrepreneur. That's the only defense. Not everyone can be an entrepreneur. You don't need to be. I got a guy following me whose name I can't remember, Paul, I think, on X. He said, someone put that video up, short of me saying that if I was 18, what I would do is I'd come out, get an apprenticeship, get a skill, and then go and work for myself. No staff, just customers, work for myself. He said, you've just described me. I paid £12,000 for an electrical engineering qualification. I've worked for myself ever since. I now work 9 to 1, 4 days a week. And I have saved and invested well enough that I could retire now if I want. I'm in my 30s.
Okay. That
sparked lots of comments under that from people going bollocks, and then other people chiming in and go, no, I've done the same. It's absolutely possible. It's actually hard work, but look at what you get. And I don't think it's about necessarily working harder. And I agree. People say, look, if you're not earning enough, it's because you're not working hard enough. No, that's not true. If you're not earning enough, it's because you haven't exercised your options and chosen well enough, and you're just kind of accepting the status quo. Anyway, it's a hot topic, but I think
it is, Charlie. Can I just Jazzy Vicky and Exotic Doll have actually they put some good points up here.
Yeah, here we are. Jazzy Vicky says financial independence is essential for women in case things go badly. It's also essential for men in case things goes badly.
Hang on. You got to understand the backstory here.
Okay.
Because Exotic Doll.
Sorry. Whilst I appreciate the joys of benefits and male breadwinner and women at home, what about issues with financial abuse? Yeah, that's a very, very valid point. Yeah.
And this is the point. This is totally valid. But I grew up in a family where my father, who had all of the financial control, gave it all to my mother. He never went out with the boys. He never did this and that. And it's the way that I was brought up as well. And you're quite right, Jazzy. There are men who are, and I use the word advisedly, cunts. There are men who will behave badly. And I think there's probably a higher percentage of men now because they don't feel a sense of honor or duty. And these are words that people laugh at me. They look at me and they go, sorry, honor, duty.
You're right. You're absolutely right. And actually, the guys who do exercise that get the rewards.
Yeah. They are fucking important.
They get a happy family life.
Yeah.
A happy family life is an extraordinary thing to achieve. And I heard someone once say, raising a happy, healthy family is an extraordinary achievement. Like,
yes,
that is an amazing achievement. And keeping a marriage together is an achievement, and it's an incredibly rewarding one.
And
Jazzy,
behave
you're right,
honorably.
Right?
But Charlie, you and I both know men who we've worked with who are reasonable at work and all that sort of stuff, who have behaved badly. And you said
I have behaved badly in the past, but never in that way.
No.
Never in that way. It's yeah, you're quite right, Jazzy Vicky. That there are extra considerations, but I hear on both sides, and you hear men saying, "Look, there are risks for us financially too. If we get married, we don't get married. Just find someone you don't like and give them a house." Is the old joke.
Yeah, exactly.
But this comes down to choice of life partner. And actually, I saw one of the really old rich philanthropists in America saying, the most important choice of your life is your life partner.
Partner.
Get
yes.
it right.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Get it right, and you just turbocharges your life. Get it wrong, and you're living in hell.
It has nothing to do with your degree. It has nothing to do with the company you choose to join. It has everything else is nothing compared with who you choose to be in a relationship with.
Yeah. That's a topic for a whole other video that I'd love to talk about, because it's there's a lot of experience we could share with the younger generation that might just improve their chances marginally.
Oh my God! But my experience is bad. Sorry, Charlie. I need to disappear.
Yes, you probably do. Alex, thank you so much. This has been riveting and stimulating. And I've got one more thing, because we did invite Sasha to join us this evening. He said he couldn't make it. We just found out why. Here he is on X saying, went to the cinema to watch Minecraft with my son, came out, and the stock market lost another 3%. And then just above him is one of the people who's having a meltdown about the Trump tariffs.
Oh, well.
Worse for the economy than a killer virus.
No need.
Everybody, thank you very much for staying with us. Thank you much for watching. I hope you've had some Friday evening entertainment. I hope you were as entertained as I was. Alex, you were fantastic. And actually, when you used that word, the C word, the Barclay Hunt word at the end that last time, that was the most valid use of that word you've ever had, because any man that does that to a woman is a cunt. Is a cunt.
Oh, yes.
I agree with that. And on that happy note,
on that bombshell,
let's see what happens next week in the economy. It's going to be interesting. Have a great weekend, everyone. Have a great weekend, Alex.
Buenas noches, Charlie.
On the morrow, no, I'm not even going to try. Good night.